Let's now go to a guest we've spoken to many times, Brendan O'Neill, who's Spiked Online's chief political writer. He normally talks to us from the UK or elsewhere. He's in Australia at the moment. It was great to catch up with you on the weekend. Brendan, I'm really keen to get your insights because the sort of stuff I just talked about, the denial of the problem and the reluctance for governments to take action, mirrors what you've seen unfold for many, many years in the UK.
Absolutely, it really does. And I've been quite shocked by the unwillingness of Australia's leaders to grapple with the problem of anti-Semitism because it is out of control. You know, last year, 2025, was the year that anti-Semitism went apocalyptic. You know, numerous people were killed by anti-Semites. We saw the young couple who were shot to death outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. An elderly Jewish lady was burnt to death in Colorado by a man shouting, "Free Palestine." In the UK, in Manchester, 2 Jews were killed at a synagogue on Yom Kippur. And then at the end of the year, we had the Bondi Massacre, one of the worst mass killings of Jews of modern times in the Western world. And still, our leaders, our thought leaders, our political leaders, our media leaders are not talking seriously about this problem, about the scourge of Jew hatred and the scourge of radical Islam. These are issues they don't want to touch, and that's making the problem worse.
I want to show you a clip that Australians have seen many times. It's from October the 9th, 2023. Have a look.
Where's the Jews? Where's the Jews? Where's the Jews? Where's the Jews?
That still makes my stomach turn, but the fact that that was done at the Opera House obviously gave it added impact. I know it made news all around the world. When you saw that from the UK, what action would you have expected to see from the Australian government?
Swift, firm action to say this is completely and utterly abhorrent. And also, we stand with the Jewish nation in its time of crisis. That's what our leaders should have said very, very clearly, and they should have stuck to that. And, you know, we saw similar scenes in London. In fact, we saw people celebrating outside the Israeli embassy on the 8th of October. They were playing pop music, they were dancing, they were letting off fireworks. These were people celebrating a pogrom. They were celebrating the mass murder of Jews, just like they did at the Sydney Opera House, just like they did in parts of Berlin, in New York City. It was an outburst of this demented Jew hatred across the Western world in the immediate aftermath of 7th of October. You know, we would remember if people had poured onto the streets in the 1930s to celebrate Kristallnacht. We would know that that was a dark moment in our history if that had happened. Well, we should remember that they did it for the 7th of October. And even worse, our leaders refused to stand up to those people.
Now, one of the responses from our federal government has been to tighten gun laws, but I want to show you some pictures that I shot myself yesterday morning around the eastern suburbs of Sydney, around Bondi. I was with you at a memorial at Bondi on Sunday night. This next morning, have a look at this. We have got traffic barriers have been installed around synagogues all around that Bondi area, right along the footpath, at the traffic lights near the synagogues. I saw this in at least 4 locations. There are probably more traffic barriers. This shows us that authorities are worried about more terrorist attacks with cars and trucks. Gun laws can't stop this hatred. What can?
You know, we have similar scenes in the UK. We have those kinds of bollards and barriers around, well-known places and also outside Jewish institutions. You know, when you walk past a building in London, and if there are armed guards outside or lots of people guarding the building, you just know straight away it's a Jewish institution. It's a synagogue, or it's a Jewish school, or it's a Jewish museum. This is the sad fact of life in 2026 in the Western world. I've spoken at numerous synagogues over the past 2.5 years, and every time I've been alarmed at how much security is needed just for Jewish people and their friends to get together to talk about issues. It's really horrific. And you're right, gun laws aren't going to solve this problem. Hate speech laws aren't going to solve this problem. We need a culture war against Islamism and its apologists right across society. We need the freedom to call this poisonous ideology out. We need more of a firm stance against it. And we need to make sure that anyone falling under the spell of this Jew hatred ideology is caught in good time before they can do any more harm. That's what we need, a brave stand against the ideologies that threaten our way of life and our way of civilization.
Great to have you in Australia, Brendan, even though I know you're flat out the whole time. But thanks so much for your courage and moral clarity.
Thank you, Chris.
Brendan O'Neill there. You can read his stuff on Spiked online. You can read it elsewhere as well, and see him here and on television in the UK as well. A great,
Thank you.
a courageous advocate for all things freedom.